Hello, my name is Alex Austin. This is my AP Lang Finals video, and it's on universal basic income and how it can lead to a better life for all Americans. By guaranteeing every American citizen a certain amount of money, a universal basic income would establish a baseline of wealth for all Americans, alleviate poverty, lessen the government's role in social programs, and protect workers from changing micro and macroeconomics. So what is a universal basic income? A universal basic income, or UBI, is a government-funded program that gives citizens a set amount of money per unit of time, no strings attached, with the goal of helping working-class citizens and stimulating the economy. An example of a UBI is the Alaska Permanent Fund, which annually gives $1,600 to each citizen of Alaska. The Alaskan Permanent Fund is financed by money made from Alaska's natural resources, ensuring that Alaskan citizens can benefit off the surplus value from the land on which they live. It's tremendously valuable for the Alaskan economy as it provides funds for college scholarships, jobs incentives, and protection from a changing economy.
They felt that the people who live in this state are entitled to receive the benefits that are gained from this land that we live on.
I think that speaks to our indigenous lifeways. When we get a large whale, we share it with all of our people. When we get a surplus of fish, we share it with our elders. So it makes sense in the indigenous sense.
I run a food truck called Pucker Wilson's in downtown Juneau. Come October, November, that's when my revenue is quite small. I'm not selling a lot of food. So that's when it really comes in handy as far as just unexpected costs and things like that.
It creates thousands of jobs because all of a sudden you have an influx of anywhere from 700 million to $1.5 billion into our economy, which is in a state of our size, it's really an enormous amount.
My parents saved the bulk of my permanent fund dividend in a savings account that was set aside for my education. And so when I finished high school, I basically had a savings account that had about $20,000 in it that was specifically for college education.
We feel very fortunate to be able to take that money and say, well, here's half of our car paid off, or here's the new flooring for our house, or whatever that is, that we can really knock out some large expenses without going into debt.
It's widely considered in Alaska to have been a very smart thing to create the permanent fund dividend. But now that the state is in harder economic times, it's up for debate.
I can't see why you can't have a similar type of permanent fund program for the rest of the United States. The United States has incredible oil resources, incredible mineral resources. And so why can't a small percentage of that go back to the people?
We will now look into two very important components of a UBI, that being the baseline of wealth and how it can alleviate poverty. When the Roosevelt Institute, an organization that researches new ideas revolving around the economy, looked into the macroeconomic and GDP stimulation potential of a UBI, they found that a $250 a month child allowance would result in a 0.79% GDP growth. A $500 a month adult allowance would result in a 6.5% GDP growth, and a $1,000 a month adult allowance would result in a 12.56% GDP growth. In addition, the Roosevelt Institute also found that the macroeconomic changes in the economy would result in higher base wages, an increase in the number of workers, an increase in education and training, and a decrease in the national deficit. In recent times, and especially during the pandemic, we have seen an increase in economic inequality. During the pandemic, the world's 2,356 billionaires increased their wealth by $4 trillion, an overall of 54%, while the rest of the population, overall poverty conditions have worsened, and the number of people living in poverty doubled to more than 500 million in the world during the first 9 months of the pandemic. Alleviating poverty. A 2% increase on the annual tax brackets of those making over $50 million, plus a 1% tax on fortunes above a billion, would compound to over $1 trillion over the next 10 years. This would be enough to finance a UBI. This UBI would take 90% of the US population who are currently in poverty out of poverty. A way to contribute to the alleviation of poverty is providing education to as many as possible. World leaders have often stressed this, with Barack Obama saying that the best anti-poverty program is a world-class education. Nelson Mandela stating that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And George H.W. Bush stating that education is a key to opportunity, and it's a ticket out of poverty.
Andrew Yang is with us now, candidate for New York City mayor these days, former presidential candidate, of course. Andrew, great to see you. You ran on this. It's happening here and there. Between experiments like the one in upstate New York and others, plus stimulus checks, local and federal governments are spending billions of dollars and sending them directly to Americans. Is this a good test of your campaign platform, and do you think it'll catch on?
Of course it'll catch on, Shepard, because we're living it. Right now, tens of millions of American families have seen their incomes either reduced or in some cases completely taken away by the pandemic. And now tens of millions of us are getting these $1,400 stimulus checks that are helping provide a lifeline for millions of families. It makes us stronger, healthier, more secure, mentally healthier, improves our relationships. 55% of Americans are now for cash relief in perpetuity, and 85% are for cash relief during this pandemic.
Another effect of a universal basic income would be the lessening of the government's role in social programs. As compared to a potential government which has instituted a UBI with 2 anti-poverty programs, our current federal government has 79 anti-poverty programs. These primarily attack poverty symptoms instead of attacking it at its source. As Martin Luther King Jr. states, the solution to poverty is to abolish it directly by a now widely discussed measure, the guaranteed income. The government's role in social programs concerning the idea of universal basic income has been long discussed throughout U.S. history, as early as the founding father Thomas Paine, and with recent examples being Republican Speaker Paul Ryan and Congressman Marco Rubio, who support consolidated welfare systems. Finally, in addition to the other components that we have discussed, a UBI would also protect workers from changing economies. In current U.S. politics, the advocacy for a universal basic income is led by former presidential candidate and current mayor for New York candidate Andrew Yang, who states in his War on Normal People book that in places where jobs disappear, society falls apart. The public sector and civic institutions are poorly equipped to do much about it. When a community truly disintegrates, knitting it back together becomes a Herculean, perhaps impossible task. Virtue, trust, and cohesion, the stuff of civilization, are difficult to restore. If anything, it's striking how public corruption seems to be often arrive hand in hand with economic hardship. Artificial intelligence and automation promise to usher in a new era. We are currently seeing a 14% increase in automated jobs per year. At over 60%, food preparation is the job area most at risk. We are at risk of losing 375 million jobs worldwide by 2030. These challenges will result in the economic consequences that Yang speaks of. Before the burden of these challenges falls on the working class, they must be combated. Some additional statistics include 20 million jobs that could be fully replaced in the US by robots by 2030, Gen Z being the most at-risk generation as they are entering the workforce during this time of change, and that 70% of people are willing to augment their body to keep a job. In his book, The War on Normal People, Andrew Yang states that we are entering an age of super-intelligent computers that can take any complex dataset, every legal precedent, radiology film, asset price, financial transaction, Facebook like, customer review, resume bullet, facial expression, and so on, synthesize it, and then perform tasks and make decisions in ways that are as good or better than some of the smartest humans in the vast majority of cases. As algorithms and AI get better at processing info, computers become smarter, leading to more automation. With the market valuing cheaper option of automated labor, the market itself must have changes made to it. In its current form, we need work more than it needs us. It will continue to need us less and less. As the definition of work itself becomes mutable, it is up to us to make sure, as Andrew Yang states, that our automation future resembles more of Star Trek than it does of Mad Max, and a UBI is the first step to getting there. Hi, I'm Alex Austin, and thank you for watching my video on universal basic income. I believe that by providing a baseline of wealth for each citizen, poverty will be alleviated, the government's role in social programs will be lessened, and the worker will be protected from a changing economy.